Good morning, everyone. I am the last discussant, Kyla Mekas, and I'm going to continue our lesson topic, which is. So, let us now talk about the Islamic architecture. The most important contribution of Islamic architecture is the development of the new kind of interior space using the Roman and Byzantine dome as a point of departure besides the mosque as the principal building types of Islam. There were the palace, the tomb, and the fort. Examples of these types of architecture are the Great Mosaic of Samarra on the Tigris River, the Alhambra Palace in Granada, Spain, and in the Mausoleum Taj Mahal in Agra, India. So, this picture is one of the examples of Islamic architecture. So let us now talk about the Carolingian, Ottonian, and Romanesque architecture. Carolingian architecture was characterized by an emphasis on the westwork on the temporal power of the emperor. The Pope and the Emperor joined hands in perfect quality. The architecture was exemplified by St. Michael Church in Fulda, Hesse, Germany. Ottonian architecture is an architectural style which flourished during the reign of Emperor Otto the Great, 936 to 975. The style was developed in the mid-10th century and lasted until the mid-11th century. The Ottonian preserves the Carolingian double-ended feature with apse at either end of the church. Romanesque architecture was characterized by the base system cross or joint vaulting semicircular arches for the opening in the walls, massive enclosing walls, and the incorporation of towers into the church building proper. Three types of church building were established during this period: pilgrimage churches, monastic churches, and imperial cathedrals, the prevailing type of Romanesque. The next one is Baroque architecture. The original meaning of the term Baroque was odd, irregular, and grotesque in 1880. The term lost in derogatory flavor and became associated mainly with the architecture of Baramini and Guarini. Baroque art grew out of Renaissance art. The architecture form of the Baroque architecture consists of two centers and a path connecting them. One center and the interior is located under the tomb and is occupied by the main altar. The other center, the exterior, is made up the obelisks. The path connects the exterior and interior space of the facade. Both centers, interior and exterior, convey the meaning of goal of arrival at the end of the pilgrimage and final arrival at the end of our life path under the dome of heaven. This type of architecture is exemplified by the St. Peter's Basilica and San Carlo alle Quattro Fontaine in Rome and Royal Church of San Lorenzo in Turin, Italy. So the next one is architecture in the contemporary world. Contemporary architecture is characterized by the use of industrial material, especially steel, glass, and concrete, deprived of ornamentation, and assembled so as to form simple geometrical volumes freely laid out in space. The development of architecture prior to the International style include Romanticism, 1750 to 1850 and beyond, architecture of engineers, architecture of the Chicago School, architecture of Art Nouveau, architecture Piotr Rationalism, and architecture of Frank Lloyd Wright up to 1914. So the next one is architecture of Romanticism. The architecture of Romantic Classicism was more linear, steeper geometrically more regular, and more academic than its Italian counterparts. Romantic naturalism expressed freedom from rules and an escape from the harsh rigor of reason into the world of institution and the natural. The forms of the architecture of romantic naturalism is not linear but spatial, more painterly and picturesque. The use of natural materials was favored. The architecture of Romanticism remained essentially lifeless. The indiscriminate use of forms from the past without concern for function and technique made these forms devoid of meaning. Examples of Romantic architecture are Guardian of the Fields at Ledoux in German Embassy in Petersburg and at the street facade of Altes Museum. The architecture of the engineers such as bridges, railroad stations, and the large halls for work and exhibitions were the first to exhibit new ideas and pave the way for contemporary architecture. This new architecture was made possible through the availability of new building materials, iron and steel, that revolutionized the whole building industry. Examples of the architecture of engineers are the Seven Bridges of England and Wales and the bridges over the Mena Street. So the next one is architecture in the modern world. Architecture in the modern world is divided into Renaissance architecture and Baroque architecture. The Renaissance architecture in Italy, the dome is a double shell structure built according to Gothic style spaces and enclosing surfaces are on simple proportional relationships. Basic module utilized the paneling of white and colored marbles. Structures follows the system of rectangles and circles. Renaissance architecture makes man standing in the center of the dome, revealing self-sufficient individuality of man, acting not by the grace of God but more by the power of his own agency. The structures established during this time were the Santo Spirito Pazzi Chapel, Palazzo Medici, Riccardi, and Palazzo Rosella in Florence, Italy, and Basilica of Saint Andrea in Mantua, Italy. These are the examples of architecture in the modern world. The first one is street facade of Altus Museum, German Embassy, and then the last one is Crown Hall at the Illinois Institute of Technology. For the last one is the Eiffel Tower. Eiffel Tower proved that the new materials, iron and steel produced by industry, could convey architectural meanings and values better than the old traditional materials of stone and wood. The Tower embodies the triumph of man over the forces of nature. It symbolizes high achievement of man that he can conquer, subdue, and control nature using these new materials. Contemporary architecture comes to a first climax and synthesis in the architecture of the international style, which some call the architecture of rationalism and functionalism. The architecture of the international style was above all characterized by the spirit of functionalism, which believed the architectural forms expressed the functions well and as such were good forms. The architects of the international style showed a seemingly genuine concern for the emotional and physical well-being of men. Urban planning was intended to provide the emotional and physical well-being of men. Urban planning was intended to provide a healthy environment. Famous architects from the period were Walter Gropius building in Germany, Thugged Hut House in the Czech Republic, the Villa Savoye in France, and Centennial Hall in Einstein Tower in Germany.